In may better tera tika neno wa tin I wan lo TV I yu po ma waloni Ngeci Ngene ya yu mada ni tin daga ye wa tika dugu kan ka kel I wudana wa ma jui kira wa I wuni wa beri ke ker ma kel I wudana wa maguti kin ping lo tin wa lo megi wa wogi wa mano gitika tim teach ma bet twal ka kel I wa awara magitika akiton kumalo me Uganda anya ema akwara beri ke ker me dor I wu program man tin ki yum ich ma dit dak ma dit atikila mera ma entika tim teach ma tek ni ma bet twal I campaign and tie gina le mon loni CEO new founder gen leba chulo waron wacha ne ngat mo charo dul makiloni awakened mind institute gen teach ki me konyo lo tiano coaching lo tiano ki jemi makunyoni waloni lifestyle skills lo tiano wakitika kuoni ni ngoma gitika fonyo ne campaign and tie coach mador dul enoni awakened mind institute nye Janai Jiwani Janai,
yes.
I'm your jolly to 12. Leba chori ni tini ni 1 to 5.
Oh, I will when you can.
I'm your jolly to 12. One no TV.
Afoyo on wing, Mautin and Watin, Anya Janai, Farida Jiwani, Hiluani actually makwa gene. Ento. One wing, one a chair, yes.
12 po one ma chao kana bacon and Watin Mautika woon any doctor kwatin ning. So America one yang kong Janai in aki kwane kala ni dak papa tedo America teta kong kama ini aki do nyoro ni anga kiguli aki kwane details ni kong one yang kuma pia one yang kum teach ma ini tetemne.
So mamana aki bonatera and then babana ti Indian. Babana actually family pa babana gubinu from the times of my great grandfather. My grandfather no ti gulu omitting my grandmother who is also an Indian from Lera.
Whoa.
So
your grandmother keep inside
Babana, yes. So an Indian gulu man and an Indian Lera girl met. So go settling a gulu.
Okay.
So we've been in Gulu for a long time. A long time, because Babana Kinyualo actually in Fitina Mbaya. There was a small hotel somewhere in the corner, roundabout.
Igulu?
Yes, Igulu. No, it was called Fitina Mbaya those days. So Kinyuale Kenyu, Lumeginebe Kinyuale like in the hospitals in Gulu. Some were born in the house where we stay. But one were born in our property, opposite the market. The main market, that stretch, that whole stretch, that is where we grew up from. Our neighbors, Ameda, the Salims, we grew up with all those people. So we are pretty much, we are bred and buttered from Gulu. It's just our color, I think, escaped somewhere. But one actually, yes. Babawati Indian, but Mamawa is from Bongatera. Babawa nye Badruddin, Zulfikarali Badruddin Jiwani. And back in the day, I know some older people, Gingeyu Badruddin Brothers, the bus company. So Gutao as a bus company, then they went into real estate, then they went into hardware business. So we are the Badruddin family in Gulu.
Wow. Okay. I know what you mean by brief history, your background.
Yes.
So born and bred Kigulu.
Yes. And Julie. It's not Zuli. It is Julie. So everyone knows Julie. Yes.
Janai, inti me teach my bed to I made get it a work background to teach my anything a Lokman me Awakened Mind Institute me for your Lutiano. Wa makunyo ni pena nge tiki passion ma deep ikumlotiana eto mapia kwa wachera kono amira ke tiet e wai don ki kwana don en kiguli I town kenyu ikwana kono kwana details ane ikumponi kwa amira kwa win
actually one an Kinyuala Kirombe.
What?
Yes. Kinyuala Kirombe, but I think at that time Mamana no, she was a very young girl.
Mamani no nyenga
Mariam Bitum Pamela. She was a very young girl, but so she couldn't really support us, Mabe, at that time. And during that time, I think my dad was also in between Gulu back to the UK, because after Amin chased the Indians, Nomeruduko or restoring the property that we had. So there was a lot of movement. So by the time I met my mom, he was still caught up in the moving up and down. Yes. So mama now nyuala kirude. Ento because no petuero supporting one mabe or handing us over to a lady Lapon Darupa Abu. Now Abu was also an Indian.
Okay.
Yes.
And Abu, very common.
Yes. And to Dahune noti actually.
Okay.
Now actually the connection Mawati Kereki Abu is Dahuma Chelpa Abu Mati Yindi. Tila main grandmother wa on my father's side. So we are in a way we are related, yes. So Darupa Abu Marione Lapon Ayedo Guawa at some point when we were still young. No wadon right in the center of town, opposite Real Art. There used to be Real Art.
Yes,
yes.
Real Art studio. Main Street.
Yes, Main Street, can you? So I don't know, and then when I think our parents settled, then we moved to our own place, right next to Chuk, Kenya. So wachara wakwane Ngene, Igulu Public. So at first me I was even in Kampala. When I was born, they brought me to Kampala, then they took me to Gulu. So I was everywhere. But from my memory, what I remember, in Gulu, Wakwane, Gulu Public.
Then woni la mero.
La mero actually uchari Holy Rosary.
La mero what
yeah, for us she's, I think, the real one. So and no Okwane Holy Rosary, but then later on we were in Gulu Public.
Okay.
Yes, I still remember how we used to march. We bombera. They made us march.
Where Gulu Public?
Gulu Public. They'll bring Gulu Public, Unifat, ngo. And then when you meet each other, hey, you try to sing louder than the other school.
And the Gulu Public was the best career.
At that time, it was, until they shifted me to Unifat. Then Unifat was the best. But yeah, so we used to march a lot. But then I think also the war had started breaking out at that time. And one of my traumatic memories also was Mati Unifat, Nodonki shifting wow to Unifat. Because I think Unifat was a new school and everyone kept saying that education was better. Good. Yes. So then we were shifted there. But I remember this time Nowati school and then all of a sudden we had people screaming. And the next thing I knew, I think Nowati P3 at that time. The next thing I knew, everyone was jumping out through the windows. You know, windows pay away. They would leave it open so that in case of anything, yes. So we were there, and the next thing we knew, people were screaming. So we jumped out of the window. It was so traumatizing. I've never forgotten that incident because Mawati this side, all of a sudden, Jomati, where we are going, people are coming this side. So we had to run in the bushes, Wakane Konkenyu. Then we ran inside the mosque. I remember I was with a friend called Siko. She was the daughter of Salim and Amedo.
Yeah, Siko.
Yes. So we were very close friends. So we had to hide, and then you go back home. It was really scary those days. Yeah. But we maneuvered through slowly by slowly. And then I think eventually, because of safety, we just had to come back to Kampala. Otherwise, if it wasn't for that, I think we would have still been
in Gulu. So, Ikwana Unifat, it's your P7, okay, don't pay tier over there.
P7 because we left Unifat, and then our dad took us to the UK. So when he took us to the UK, we were in the UK for about 2 years, coming to 3. Then Wadugo Dari.
Mera wuni sister ni?
Yes, Ankila Mera. She Wadugo from the UK. Then they let me say laugh. Then my dad put me in Mary Immaculate from UK. Oh my goodness. My trauma has been big. So, UK, Kerwal Mary Immaculate. Jal Mary Immaculate, no. menongocham to eat.
Ulwanya.
The sisters would tell you, if you want to eat your food, you have to carry your sack of maize, walk up to the mill. They grind it for you.
Oh my goodness.
And you bring it back. So every day after class, that was the deal.
Oh my goodness.
If Monday we walked to the mill, and the mill was like dozens of lacho. Water girl. Ay.
Mary kwano na di.
No, don't. And Mary no dati Ngene. I would think I was about in P5, P6,
Food
P5.
petty,
Yes, I was still young. So no, water up to the mill. Then we come back. Then the next day after class, you go to the garden. Kafu jal.
No way.
But there are no hose. You use a knife. You had to kneel. You kneel on your knees, and then you dig the soil and harvest with knives.
Punishment ke kung fu.
Oh, it was the way of life, my dear.
Okay.
If we want to eat, that is the thing. So even rice, we would harvest rice with knives.
Oh my God.
By the time you come back, your hands are cut.
Oh.
But it was tough. But now I think because I've healed from that, I can say it helped me build resilience.
Yes.
It helped me build resilience because now I think if you throw me anywhere,
you can survive.
I will handle. Yes. So yeah. That was pretty much our education, and then eventually, because of P7, Donkikelwa Kampala, because of better education, so that we are able to find a good high school.
Yes.
Yes. So
so konde bakarong high school ikwano kikwana.
So high school don't wa berukan. Pedong wa doc. Yes. I wakwane St. Joseph's Girls in Zambia. Which was also a Catholic school. So I've pretty much been bred in Catholic schools. I'm very appreciative of the Catholic system. Yes.
And yet your family is Muslim, right?
Yes. We grew up in a Muslim family. My dad was actually an Ismaili Muslim.
What's the difference?
So Indians, there is a religion, the Aga Khans. Those are the Aga Khans, the Ismaili Muslims. So he was actually raised as an Ismaili Muslim. But then somewhere along the way, I think someone convinced him to become a Sunni Muslim. While for us, we were being convinced to become Christians.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say convinced. I think it was just our experience of life, and those were the choices we made.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think at that time, it was a hard thing for him to accept
that you had become Christian.
Yeah, it was very tough for him. I could tell because at some point, well, at that time I was now also in university. So at that time, Ruchulu was school fees. So I had to drop out of mobs at that time. But you can always tell a father's love. A father will yell, shout, but you will always sense his love. Of course, kafudi tiri, idamne muzee donge, muzee kirera, yes. But kai don, chide chaonyang, yes. So I had to leave mobs. I stayed home for a bit. No ati beruki pasta money because no kwera ni pa bed wa gamba. So no beruki pasta at some point. So I think maui ni pasta yeti gwa. It hurt him, I think, as a father. Yeah. Watching matukena yeti gwa pidulatina. So then he decided to fish me out of there with education. He said, "Abichulu school fees enter on condition." He gave me some conditions. So I told him, most of me, I have one condition. Let me pick what course I want to study. So then, amazingly, how God works things out. Because at that time, Mao deciding when he came to his senses and decided to pay me back to school. No university when don't get in the middle of their semesters. But there was only one university with a different system. And guess which one? Uganda
Christian University. Wow.
So it's like God was also paving the way for me. So I acquired Uganda Christian University. At that time I know American psychology, but no gipeki psychology. So I team child development and children's ministry.
Era ino gin me mera temene.
So because there was no psychology, child development was the closest. Because then I'm understanding the development of a child, the mind, the stuff like that. So that I opted for that. Instead, I think at that time business was not something I wanted because I don't with a business father.
Yes.
And we used to work in the shop sometimes, but the pressure was too much. So it was the last thing I wanted.
You didn't see yourself.
I didn't see it at that time. So then I opted for psychology. But I always knew na meron dano, but I didn't know how. So my studying child development, I must say it's like my first year of my counseling session. Because Jamie, ma Paul, ma wadon, we experienced a lot of trauma. Our parents divorcing. When my parents actually separated, it was actually done in a very tricky way because muzee mutual the UK. Mawadugo wa no mommy don't pay out.
Utenye mommy can.
Yes, utenye mommy can. But mawadugo. It's.
I know. Breathing.
So there was so much adjustment for us to do. Coming from the UK back to Gulu, mom is not there. Then our dad was busy as a businessman, which is understandable. It's how he used to put food on the table. So no, we really struggled, Anki Lamera, finding our place, our belonging. We never used to say it out, but it was tough. Lamera no lia. For me, I was vocal. So I think my expression was more violent. So I would fight a lot with my stepsisters. Because as a kid, I felt like they were in my space. I mean, I walked in, things have changed. Mom is not there. Now my space is being invaded. As a child, I couldn't understand that, you know. So it was really tough. I think by the time we even got to high school, we preferred being in boarding school than being at home. And I remember we'd always find an excuse, maybe to Kampala instead of going back to Gulu. Either we say, I'm coaching, you know, but the truth is it's not about coaching.
Yes.
The truth is you want to just stay away.
Stay away from chaos.
So, but anyway, we maneuvered through, and I think also what really broke our hearts is when we found mommy no pay out, we found out mommy no obeyed Islam. Because she met our dad when she was young. She didn't have like education papers to get a job and stuff like that. So her lifestyle was really hard. And so sometimes holidays, no matter was shifting. Sometimes we stay with daddy, sometimes we have to stay with mom. But at Gangbot Muse loved us. I can never doubt my father's love for me as a father. But so when we'd get to home at our father's, it's like we lived in a mansion and then lived in a slum.
Two different
things. So for a child, it's very hard to
comprehend.
Yes, comprehend. So that time when we'd go to our mom, sometimes we'd even just sleep on tea, black tea and bread.
Chinonyang, Mama knew what you need, this is what I have, and you would understand.
One of the biggest mistakes I think my mom made was she always tried to make it look like we are okay.
That is well.
Because I think if she had explained, maybe it would have been easy.
But you were so small, you wouldn't understand.
So she always tried to make it look rosy and good. So when we would come, whatever money she has, she would make sure she buys meat and stuff. And then only to realize later on that we what? The next week we are going to sleep hard. So yeah, it was really tough for us, but we maneuvered through. We did.
Wow. It's some of those toughest memories growing up. We all go through them. You're not alone. But barefoot bear, and somehow God, takes us through them, and we heal. We move on. I want us to talk about maybe the fondest memories. Madak perachitwal, madak olo me itamu, and you reflect good things.
I think for me, one of the fondest memories was my mom loved cooking sombosas a lot. And my dad loved having parties at home. So every time mommy would make she would make her sombosas, her gurusas and stuff, and then would have our friends come over as the sikos, even Juma of the radio station.
Juma Jami. Mega FM.
All of us were in the same circle. They were our uncles, so those were like fond memories. And then also other kids who were half caste would come and would feel like, now our people, now our people are here. Because also one of the challenges we faced was sense of belonging. Yes. Because Kajibod actually kilu anymore. You see?
Yes.
Then when you try dog catcher, Babana, there was a way they also treated us like we are black.
Like you're not really Indian.
Like we are not good enough, So it was very, very
like you're in between.
Yeah, in between. So whenever we had those community moments, that was like the best.
Besides parties, anything else like the food that you used to enjoy other than the sumbusas?
I remember also going to Bongatira. Every time we went to Bongatira with Abu and his wife, those were also memories because the whole village was full of trees. You could smell the earth was fresh. No chemical.
No
chemical. It was fresh. And then the fruits, there was a lot of full mono. We had trees of full mono. We used to love those fruits. Fene, ogasi, all those things. Yes. So it was really, really interesting. Then sometimes they would to challenge us. There was water in the village, but I think sometimes our grandmother just wants us to test the tough life. And she would tell us, "Muchigampi kulu." Then wacheri kulu. Hey.
Itiyopi.
Luenye wacheri kulu.
Luenye peberi kulu. Luenye be tangi. Ebe kulu magami.
No, even in kulu, everyone wants a certain spot.
Kama pile, ni kama walpochiru ne.
Oh my goodness. Then I think there was a time I made a mistake and stepped in the water. Hey! They almost slaughtered me. They abused me. I had to pretend I don't know actually. To survive. I just kept quiet. I acted like that.
How did you step on one pea?
No, it didn't hit my head. Like I did for me. How much this is a good it was okay. That they would use Ngene. Kikobo. So me, I think in my head, and then Anyoni, Kiera. I had to pretend I didn't know actually. I didn't fight with anyone. So, so those are really, really fond memories. And then stories, when we would sit at night, then ukiboko wa dodo namoni
Karomotie.
So we really enjoyed those. Then sometimes it would rain. My grandfather's place, no wakwanyu pi, wakeri chavon, onyi gena cement.
Men okay town.
Don't get down. On cement. Then walunyu bawa weng. That was like the best. So there were actually very good fond memories as well as we were growing up. Yes. Wow. So my gangwa chuki, the memories were mostly kamuze obedo wa oti marukone. He loved Johnny Walker. He would sit me on his lap and sing for me, tell me stories, you know.
But body when a logo kid will ever chudi.
Okay, and no, actually, and no logo le mono. But kati loki customers no temo.
Never chudi.
Yes, he would try and speak actually, but of course he would get lost in the middle. I think also at some point he also started having an identity crisis. Because even Indian language so it wasn't as strong as before.
So in Code, you speak some little Indian language?
Yes.
Wow, okay. So kung wala about kuoni after university dong ikwano itiero gen any man of arama penyeka no passion itie no were you seeing yourself ni aramera fonyo do tiara makoma this is what I want to do uchaka wana.
So Matiero University, Child Development and Children's Ministry are joining Watoto Church. Because remember that was now known as
born again.
Yes, born again. So I had no dati volunteering ki Watoto Church, dati school. So by the time I finished, because I had served so they were open to give me. I was interviewed and then placed in to work, and I started as a worship coordinator. But at that time I was also working as volunteering with the youth department. I'm a creative. I'm much of a creative child. I think out of the box, and it got me in a lot of trouble with my parents also. So we're writing music. We used to write music for the church, record and stuff like that. Then I joined the Watoto Child Care Ministry. No, don't watch out traveling with the children's choir. So the first year I joined children's choir, was sharing in Canada for 6 months. And during that time, I was serving as the children's facilitator. So Nati responsible for the children's well-being, emotional well-being, making sure that they have their concert right, their words right. We used to work as a team. Then the second year, we're sharing in the US for another 6 months. And at that time, I was now sponsorship coordinator, raising sponsorship and partnerships for Watoto, for the children. So I was in the space of children for a long time. So I was now putting into practice also now what I had studied. And so many things started becoming clear to me. Then the last one, I went to Australia. And I noticed, orphan children go through a lot. They go through a lot. Yes, you have an orphanage where you're being looked after, a community where you're being looked after.
Deep inside, deep down, wounds.
Deep down, there are wounds, childhood wounds. And I think I could identify with some of these wounds because of my own childhood journey. So at that time I became very invested in now helping the children. So after that I joined Children's Church. I became the worship director for the Children's Church Ministry. Of course, still in the area of creative, writing music, those productions that you used to see.
Christmas cantata
Christmas cantata for the kids and stuff like that. I was behind those things. But in mixing with these children now, these are now not Watoto orphans. These are now children of other people. Children would open up to me about so many things, but there were protocols. You get and some things you can't get involved. You have to give them to the pastor or the pastoral leadership. But it opened my eyes to see what children were going through. And I think because I identified with a lot of this, because some of the children that would open up to me would talk about their parents being absent, always on the phone. Mom is always on the phone. We don't spend time with mommy. What. And first it starts like a normal conversation. Then before you know it, statements start coming out. So I notice kids really need someone to understand them. But also, parents need someone to help them build that gap. Merge that gap. Because there's a gap that was growing. with now both parents working, children are in school, boarding. They are like apart. Then all of a sudden, holiday, they are together. They are like two strangers.
Yes.
Who think they know each other.
And yet they don't.
And then they start forcing each other to do the way they please. And then the clash happens. So that's when I was like, we need to do
We need to bridge this gap.
Yeah, we need to bridge this gap.
So, Janai, I want us to take a break and we come back to this discussion. Kowat chere break manok ene. Fura te kanyi Janai Farida Jiwani with namatin NTA coach ma coaching the tiana kit me ko lifestyle skills. Lemu wana bwara kumena watika lebe churi wapete akotwal karibena NTA la tianwa makinywalo ki gulu ki kome en kinyon en kitunku malo me Uganda. Wana bena miena kitunku malo wana bena indi ma ake gulu. So watika tema nywako lokere kit kwane nyo jima ente katemne ikin ping me konyo lutian wa mir kong wa chat wa yue manok kada padugi.